Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTube. I'm a couple days late at making this video, and because of that, I missed a perfect opportunity of some days lining up. But I'll still be able to get the point across. I'll still be able to tell you what that was. The story of Nehemiah. If you don't know the story of Nehemiah, find a summary from someone else online because I'm terrible at summarizing stories, or even telling stories for that matter. But the gist of it is, this guy wants to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and God allows him to do it. What I noticed, and I really wanted to talk about, it's not something that's exclusive to the story of Nehemiah. It's in all the biblical stories, and even other stories in history, and even movies. This is something that goes to, I guess it goes along with storytelling and history retelling in general. But, right before I get into it, it's just, the thing that's so interesting and so beautiful about biblical stories is that you can keep peeling off layer after layer after layer, and you can just keep diving deeper into them. Like, you can read the stories as is. You can read the stories as they're told. It's so cool how you can keep going deeper and deeper into stories, and you can never reach the bottom. You can keep digging away at stories forever. You can dig away at the stories in this Bible forever, and it's such a small book, yet, like I said, you can dig away at it forever, and you can never reach the bottom. A lot of sermons will go to the overview of the story. They'll go to the base message of the story that God's trying to get across. But I think enough people have talked about, the story of Nehemiah and all the stories in the Bible where, me just retelling a story again and telling, all the principles you can apply to your life will just be, it's a rehash. That doesn't need to be done. But I like to dig farther into the stories, and I'm not saying I do anything, I'm not saying I'm going farther than other people do. I'm not trying to say I'm doing anything grand, but just noticing different facts about the stories, different things you can pull out of it. I find that can be kind of useful. So, forget my rambling. When you hear the name Nehemiah, you probably think, if you've read the Bible, that, okay, he's the guy who built the wall of Jerusalem. He's the guy who God used to rebuild the wall. And we think, that's an amazing thing he did. And we look at that as his entire life. Like, that's this amazing thing God was able to use him for. When you read about it happening and you get to chapter 6, verse 15, it says, the wall was finished in 52 days. Done. 52 days. The whole story that we know of him, there's more that it tells of Nehemiah, but the whole story everybody thinks of with Nehemiah, the whole story that everyone thinks, man, this is a grand event, how God is using him in an amazing way, happens in 52 days. And what I think should be learned from that is that don't look in your life for some grand event to give your life meaning and purpose. Don't look for, and this is the part that I'm saying can be used in all forms of, storytelling, all forms of history. We hear these grand events people do, and we think, man, that person's life had meaning. That person had, adventure in their life. It's almost like the idea of the hero's journey, that, you go on this grand journey and you get this, like the Lord of the Rings, okay, you achieve this whole purpose, and you think that makes life worth living. And you may also be waiting in your own life for something like that to happen. You're thinking, okay, right now I'm just working at my job, but I'm going to have my moment. I'm going to have my, the thing that's going to make me in the history books. But, you're going to have your Nehemiah moment. But when you look at Nehemiah, sure, he's remembered for it, but that was 52 days. And this is the thing that I said if I would have made this video a few days ago, it would have lined up perfectly, is I think it's like 56 or 57 days ago was my birthday, January 18th. And so let's just say for a minute, let's time travel back a few days. And like 52 days ago was my birthday. If I would have started building the wall of Nehemiah on my birthday, it'd be done by now. And that'd be it. I turned 23, I'm building my wall, and we're done. Now I have to go on with the rest of my life. The rest of my, 50, 60 years, or however long God lets me live. And that's it. And sure, I can try to ride that high for a while. I can try to ride that, hey, remember when I built a wall back, last year? Remember when I built a wall 5 years ago? Remember back when I built a wall 10 years ago? You remember back in my day, like 40 years ago, I built a wall. You can only go on that for so long. You can only look to some grand event to give your life meaning for so long. And eventually, you've got to realize that most of life is not these grand events. Most of life is not slaying Goliath. Most of your life is not going to be, being in the lion's den of Daniel. That was one day. And if you're looking for a grand event to give your life purpose and to think, oh, you're just waiting to, to feel fulfilled and feel, meaning in your life. Like, oh, God's going to give my life meaning one of these days by having me do some great thing for him. it's going to let you down. Because while, yes, God is a God of amazing events, God is a God of, he builds mountains. God also builds anthills, and God also builds, the smallest of things we can't even see. Just because you're not going through some grand event, just because you haven't had your Nehemiah moment and you haven't built a wall, doesn't mean that you're not doing something grand in life. Doesn't mean that your life doesn't have meaning and purpose in the eyes of God. Because, yes, God is the God of building walls for Nehemiah, but God is also a God of window washing, and God is also a God of furniture polish. And as funny as that can sound, it's true. And just because you may not be doing some grand event that people see, and just because you're just washing windows, just because you're just checking people out as a cashier, just because, you're just teaching children, whatever your career is, whatever you're doing in your life, if you never get your grand Nehemiah moment, you didn't miss anything. It's not that you failed and you didn't live up to your full potential like God wanted you to do in life. God is with you day by day in everything you do. And I think looking to these stories can be good, and we should look to these grand stories as, I guess you say to show us how powerful God is and what God can do in your life. I'm not saying that don't look to some event, or if God brings if God if God has something great for you to do in life, you can still fulfill it, and you can glorify God by that great event. But don't think don't think that you need an event to come for your life to have meaning. Don't think that, God doesn't care about you if you don't have some grand event happen. Because, as I said, it's like God has built galaxies, but then God has also built, the smallest of creatures. And nothing is lesser of importance to God. Nothing that, Nehemiah building this wall wasn't any less important than you putting in carpet. God told Nehemiah to build this wall. So Nehemiah built it. And God was pleased with him because he followed him. Because Nehemiah followed God's voice, he was pleased with him. If you're putting in carpet and you're following God's voice putting in carpet, God is just as pleased with you as he was with Nehemiah building that wall, as he was with not Goliath. He's just as pleased with you as he was with David slaying Goliath. It's no different. And it's really hard to get that through our minds, that we think that, certain things are greater or lesser that, we do, but God created all this. Nothing is too big for God, and nothing's too small for God. Nothing surprises God. God can do anything he wants. He doesn't need you to build a wall for him. He can get anyone to build a wall. What he wants you to do is he wants you to obey his voice. He wants you to obey what he is telling you to do, whatever that may be. Whether that's, I keep trying to find more examples as I'm talking. But what I'm trying to say is that just follow God's voice. Follow God in your day-to-day life, and that is no different in the eyes of him than you doing some great event for him, like building a wall. And the other thing to look at from this event with Nehemiah is he didn't just out of nowhere all of a sudden know, just like that, how to build this wall. That was, as a lot of people say, and I don't know, like, I don't, my memory's not too good of stories, even though I just read it, I still forget, I forgot like more than half of it. People, call Nehemiah a civil engineer. He knew what he was doing with building this wall. He wasn't just some no-name nobody off the side of the street that just all of a sudden went, I'm going to build a wall for God, and just did it. Not that can't happen, yet, I guess the whole idea of, I think I made another video on it, which is probably an awful video, because my videos are everywhere, but it's the idea of staying in your lane, doing what God has given you gifts to do, and not looking at what someone else is doing as something greater. And it's like, Nehemiah, he already knew how to build a wall. He already knew how to, arrange people and how to do stuff, and he already knew how to command people. Another little lesson, which is something that, something that I need to learn a bit more, is a lot of times I'll go with the thing of being spirit-led, and I think my last video I actually just talked on that. But what you have to be careful is that saying that you're spirit-led is not an excuse to not prepare, not an excuse to not do things. Because there's a cool moment in here that it actually, I had read about in a book I just read called Forward. It's by David Jeremiah. And it's in verse 2 of, still in the book of Nehemiah, verse 2, when he comes before the king, and the king, is like, oh, why do you have such a sad countenance? He's, asking Nehemiah, what he's sad for. And, Nehemiah, he asked the king about, rebuilding the wall. But right before that, it has a quick thing, the king said unto me, what do you make what's your request? And then it says, so I prayed to the God of heaven, and then I said unto the king, just like that. I prayed to God and said unto the king. In a mere instant, he made a prayer, probably just saying, hey, God, help me. Just like, what do I say so this guy doesn't kill me? Because, being before a king back then was a fearful thing. You had to be careful, you have to be careful what you say. And in that, it seems like, oh, he just did a quick prayer, and you can just pray to God in an instant, and he'll tell you what to do. But chapter 1, right before that, before that quick prayer, it goes through this huge long prayer that Nehemiah had, that he's asking God, if he would let him build a wall, if he would just, hear his people, and hear, if you've got to remember his promises. And then he's able to make his quick instant prayer. So God, Nehemiah didn't just do a quick prayer out of nowhere about this. Being spirit-led is something that I think can be dangerous to do, because it's easy to fall into your emotions when you say, oh, I'm spirit-led. It's easy to go be emotional, and not then your emotions a lot more. And a way you can almost attribute it is for giving driving directions somewhere. If you need to go somewhere, you can give really good direction. Like if I need to know how to get somewhere, I can say, or if someone else is asking you how to get somewhere. However, driving directions. If I say, okay, you have to go, go north on Fenton Road, and then you make a left, and then you go, you're going, I don't know what direction it is, east, west. You're going west, west on Hill Road, and then you got to, make a right and go north on Torrey Road until you pass the bend of the airport, and then you got to make a left on Bristol Road, and then you got to make a right. Like, if I'm giving you all these directions on where to go, get to the mall, or I could just say, it's off of Miller Road. It's on the north side of Miller Road, right near Linden. Okay. You can know how to get there if you already know the streets. But if you're new to the area and I just say, oh, it's, it's on the north side of Miller Road and on the corner of Linden, you're not going to have a clue where that is. And you're not going to know how to get there. It's like, how do I get there from here? Now, you can get there if you know the road. Like I said, if you know the roads, you can get there. I don't have to tell you step by step every road to turn on to get there. I can tell you it's on this road, and you'll know how to get there if you know the area. In that same way, I think of being spirit-led. You can have quick prayers to God, and you can be, spirit-led in the moment if you know God, if you know God's voice to begin with. But in order for that to happen, you have to be in prayer. You have to be reading the Bible constantly. And it still can be dangerous because you still can fall to your emotions. But I think it's just that you have to, you can know what to do in a quick moment and know what to do. You can know what God will want you to do in an instant if you already know what God will want you to do by studying the Word. If you're studying the Bible on a day-by-day basis, you can know what to do in an instant when you're talking to somebody. But if you're not willing to dive into the Word, if you're not willing to, as God says, eat the Word, if you're not willing to, to consume it constantly and daily and pray to God, you're not going to know what to do. And if you then try to be spirit-led, you're going to fly way off the tracks. You're going to think you know where you're driving, and you're going, way past your destination because you don't know the crossroads beforehand. It's one of those things of pretty much just stay in the Word at all times. And then when you need God, it'll come to you. When you need help in a moment, in a mere instant, God will be there. But you'll only know it's God's voice if you know what God sounds like, if you know what His Word sounds like. Then you'll be able to discern good from evil. I think that's pretty much it. I think I covered all the topics I wanted to. I covered all the topics I wanted to cover. And now I'm kind of rambling, and I never know how to end these videos. And I would be an awful preacher if I had to do this up on stage because you never get to leave the pulpit. But I'd never get to leave the pulpit. You could walk at any time, I guess. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up before you get tired of me speaking. And Lord willingly, I'll see you all later.